3, 2, 1, boom. And we are back with another episode of Socratic Gamers. This is a Socratic Dialogue. Episode, the second version of our Socratic Dialogue. Basically what this is we just take one thing that we thought was super cool and we just talk about it rather than the 4 things that we talk about throughout the week, not in the roundup. But yeah, so we checked out Graham Hancock's talk in Toronto, and this is what the topic is. We're just going to recap it. Mm-hmm. So let's start off. What do you think, Vish?
Oh, I thought it was kind of cool. Just seeing him in person.
That's what you thought was cool out of the whole thing? You're just like, hey, it's him in person.
Wait, no. I never finished.
Oh, okay, true. Go ahead.
Because you always wonder, how tall they actually are.
That's funny. Okay, true. We're just short. That's what it is. Yeah, okay.
Well, outside of that, it's just because I didn't read the new book, so his talk was mainly about the... stuff book,
but he referenced the old books as well, like, yeah.
Right, yeah. How it's connected, or referenced a little bit of it, but he was mainly focused on the new findings
for sure.
in his new book. So, it was stuff I've never heard of before, or other than some things from the Joe Rogan's podcast. But
true, yeah. Did you find it dry at all?
It's a lot of information.
I know. I noticed the guy in front of me fell asleep. I was taking notes, so I was like super engaged the whole time, but I felt it too. I was kind of like, you're inundating me with so much information, my brain's shutting off.
Right.
Did you feel that too? Oh, I nudged you a couple times.
Of course,
like, wake up, bro, wake up.
No, I was like in it, and then I wasn't, because I got the major message of the slide, but then the rest of the stuff he said I don't need.
No, I know, right? All right, here, fun fact. When people, you read a lot of books, I do read them,
right?
But it's not like, when people read books, they typically read them like a story. It's like, I'm going to read every single word and everything. Right. I'm going to create this picture in my mind. Yeah. When I read something, I'm looking for the points. I don't need you to tell me that the sky was blue. I just need to know that there was a sky. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And it's that's why I can burn through these books. But I know what you meant about because as I was writing notes, I could hear him out of the corner, out of my side awareness. And I was like, oh, I don't need this part right now. Right. You're I didn't need the numbers. I just wanted the takeaways. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
But I mean, I guess other people, it depends on what you're looking for, right? I just wanted the general idea. I didn't really care about the minutia of it all.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yes. I think maybe that's why you fell asleep.
Probably.
Yeah. But it was definitely not boring, I didn't think.
No, it wasn't boring because there were very interesting parts that I did, really was awake for.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
But it's just... all that information in such a little time. So
yeah, totally. Yeah. So I'm just gonna go over some theories and then we'll just talk about it. We'll see what you think. So I'm gonna go through his primary theory. Okay, so he's cracked the historical code in my mind. So he's proven that there was a civilization that was here before us.
Right.
That was seafaring.
Yeah.
And they were there during the time of the Ice Age, but then they got wiped out because of the Ice Age, right? And so the reason why the Ice Age happened, they're like, how did it plummet so quickly? And no scientist could figure it out. Well, they had some theories, but nobody really wanted to look in depth into it. But he proposes that an asteroid or a comet hit the North Pole, the Arctic.
Yeah.
And in doing that, it melted all of the water, and then once that cold water enters into our system, it kind of, how there's currents.
Yeah.
So it disrupted the currents, and that's what plummeted us because it couldn't warm itself up quick enough because of the currents were disrupted, and then we went into an ice age.
Right.
And that's how it all happened. Yeah. And it was a flash ice age because it was such a sudden stop that what do you do? And then from there, just like in our time, if we hit a global catastrophe, the only ones that would survive would be hunter-gatherers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And because they would know, it's their day-to-day is survival. Whereas ours is we're very separated. We're specialists.
Yeah.
One guy's really good at accounting. One guy's really good at putting out fires. One guy's a technology, right? Yeah. But if you can't be a generalist, then if the world crashes, you're done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so what it sounded like to me was like the show The 100. You went into like a post-apocalyptic world, and then we were the birth children of that post-apocalyptic world. But the reason why we're like a species with amnesia is because like we never had the tools until now to really look into it. And what would happen if those hunter-gatherers had seen technology from today? Would they not be like, oh, these people are gods?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, how are they communicating through this small device back and forth?
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or like, how are they watching? Like, you know what I mean? Like, or how are they flying in the sky? They'd be like, oh, they're these godlike beings.
Yeah.
And that's where like ancient religion came from. You know, like if you look at like the Chinese with the Taoist religion, and like the it's not really Taoist. I think it's like just the ancient Chinese religion, and then like Hinduism, and then like, you know, these chariots, like Krishna came from the chariot.
Right.
You know, there's so many like how are these gods built into ancient systems? But it's like it makes logical sense if like what would a hunter-gatherer say about our time? If they had never seen us before, they just make up a story.
Yeah.
And then those stories became religion.
Yeah.
So it also reminded me of like Avatar, The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like they took the Avatar, like the airbending, or not just the airbending, but like all bending in general. And then they turned these into like different religious groups in Korra. So like the Aang series, it was like that was their bending spirituality, you know?
Yeah.
And then in the Korra, it's like there were like different sects of bending believers.
Right.
You know? And like, so I guess like right after we went to that all remember that like the cafe, it was like Allfinity or something, Trinity Cafe. All right, so it's like some weird cafe, but then like I was seeing like everybody with their beads, everybody with their Buddha tattoos, everybody with their like, you know, and I was like, oh, this is the Korra life.
Yeah,
like we're in this modern world, but you guys are still choosing to be like ancient spiritualists because you're like, oh, like I'm following the tribe of like Shakti, you know?
Right.
Right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's like, but you don't, like, that was just like like a naive analogy, but you're taking it so far that you're like, we're the devotees of Shakti, you know?
Yeah.
And like that was what they did in Korra too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I just thought that was fascinating.
I mean, it's very interesting to see, like you know, they could take the remnants of what was left and then make different kinds of stories of it, right? Like that's just kind of what's happening.
And that's why. So like, so the reason why there's all these similarities. So like, what he's saying is like there are different parts when like the equinox hits. Like the winter solstice or whatever, and then like Earth meets sky. He kept saying like different parts of the world shown that like if you look at the certain structure at the specific time, it perfectly aligns to the equinox or something?
With the sun, right?
The sun in the horizon perfectly.
Yeah.
You know, and then like it's at every part of the world. And what he's saying is like, were they tapping into some like divinity? And I was like, no, that's just showing you that this was a pervasive religion, and the main, they were basically Atlanteans. Like what, I know it sounds crazy, but so when you hear about Atlanteans, like this lost civilization, that is who these people were. They weren't like flying in spaceships and stuff. They were just seafaring. Like they had ships. They were just advanced for their time. You know, but then they crumbled. But the religion of that time, think of it like America, right?
Yeah.
And actually, when I was reading the book, that's why he calls it America Before, because it's the America of before which was Atlantis, right? So like how America, it's so powerful, it's this one nation, and then it goes to these different places and then spreads its ideas.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what the Atlanteans were, and then it's like the reason why you see these similarities in different places is because they shared that idea to that place.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what did you take away from it?
Well, I think what I was like more interested in was because we don't know, well, we thought we knew most of the America's story, right? Like
yeah, because you
the
thought
history.
What they believed was that no Americans had been populating that land,
right?
You know.
Yeah, it's just very interesting that of the things that he found, that how old or how like the timeline of when humans may have reached North America's, right? That's what that's one of the things I was finding very interesting, because normally we thought it was what, like 10,000, was it? Something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
After or around the last, or after the ice age or something like that, but then potentially with the bones that they're finding, that it's going to be more like about 100,000+ years now.
Yeah, so exactly. So they've been here for a while. And then when he goes to these places in America, and like you find these structures as well, like these other spiritual structures that are spread out across America, showing you that this Atlantean civilization, they had spread their ideas worldwide.
Right.
But it makes sense because we do that now. Like, it's like, if you're like, that makes, like, how could like an Atlantean race like capture most of the world? Think about how we call it, like, globalization.
Yeah.
In my university course, they called it Americanization, because it's like America really changed how the globe is viewed now. We all wear like T-shirts and, like, you know, everybody loves pop music. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're doing this again today. You know?
Right.
What I found really interesting about like the Ice Age thing is when he said that the comet hit the Arctic and then it melted, and then like it cast us into an ice age.
Right.
That's kind of what we're doing now with global warming. Like, there's like these patches in the Arctic which are melting the Arctic and like changing the polarities. You know, not as quickly as if the comet had hit, but they are changing. You know. So it's almost like history repeats itself, which actually is interesting, because if you look at ancient religions, they believe that we had gone through different periods. Like the Greeks and the Indians, the Hindus, they believe that we went through like bronze, silver, iron, gold age, right? Like different periods. And then once you hit the gold age, then you get cast back onto the bronze age. It's like, why would these religions have the exact same philosophy? Yeah, because they knew that it was passed on over time. Like, it's like, we've been here before many times.
Yeah.
We just didn't know we were here many times before.
Right. That would make more sense with those old texts, I guess, or old beliefs.
And sorry,
cycles.
To go back to, because this is pretty interesting. So like the first map that they found, the most ancient map, like historically within like our modern science, it would show like the art. So that map was actually based off of maps from hundreds of prior maps. They just neglected to mention that, right? Like, that guy was like the guy that invented the most modern map. He was basing his map off of other maps, but they're like, no, those maps couldn't be real. Those were just like figments of imagination. And then he said that no, the maps were stored in the Library of Alexandria, but then when they got burned, we lost all that information. Yeah. But wouldn't it make sense? Think of it like from a post-apocalyptic world. You have like Alexandria, that's like the pinnacle. And then this place gets burned down by like native, like against tribes. Right. You know, they're like, you're too powerful with your knowledge. We're just gonna go there. It's like the Huns and the Chinese. You know, like the Huns were the outsiders, or like in a contemporary term, it's sort of like the in the Game of Thrones, the people outside of the wall. What are they called? Wildlings. Yeah. So it's like the wildlings, and then the people of the north, right? It's like, or the people within the Seven Kingdoms. It's like, no, you have this like outside group that's kind of pissed that the inside group has stuff that it won't share. Right. So they're obviously going to revolt. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
Very true.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. No.
And what else? So that made me think, like, what did we lose in the Library of Alexandria?
That's true. Yeah, what was in there that we?
Because he said he based those maps off of the Library of Alexandria's maps, right? And then what was interesting too is like, in certain maps there was the Arctic, and then in other maps there was no Arctic. So it's like, oh, was this a sign of like, during the Ice Age there were still people trying to map things, right? But there was no Arctic. Like, it's hard to say. And then through DNA science, like, how do you know they were seafaring? So there was like DNA in Australasia, he said. I think that's like Australia, Asia.
Yeah.
And then they found the exact same DNA in the Amazon. Right?
Yep.
But there was a land bridge at the top of the map, right? So like if we weren't seafaring, you would find the DNA crossing around the world to get to the Amazon, because Australasia and the Amazon are separated by vast oceans.
Yeah.
But there was no DNA. There's only DNA in these two spots. So the only logical conclusion is that they were seafaring.
Right.
They crossed the sea.
Right.
Which goes against the assumption that the Hawaiians was the first seafaring culture. Because this one would have predated it by like 30,000 years, I think he said.
Yeah. If they were in America's 100,000, then yeah, I would
exactly say
that.
Yeah. So fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, even with that, even with the Hawaiian thing too, they still don't think. I don't even think they still believe that they had big ships.
The Hawaiians?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
But there's no way that they would make that across without big ships.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's interesting to see these new evidence show up, and then especially with the DNA anomalies, I think that
was like the smoking gun.
Yeah.
It's like how else could you possibly
exactly
jump from one area to the next?
Yeah.
Without seeing them cross. So what I find interesting too is like those ancient cultures, they believed in psychedelics, like ayahuasca and like all this stuff to connect to the gods, and like all these religions did it too. Like Egypt did it, right? They did the blue water lily, and then they would like take this DMT, and then they'd travel into like the netherworld, right?
Yeah.
But like even that, because we're still doing it today, but we're stuck on their belief system.
Yeah.
So like if you are to believe that, that would negate science, because science tells you that without a cerebral cortex, you can't possibly interpret this data. It's like humans just create meaning out of chaos.
Right.
We create patterns. So a good example is like if you look at the cloud, it's just chaos, right?
Yeah.
But if you can see like a dragon, you can see like a person in the cloud, but really it's just chaos manifesting.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like the exact same thing can be said about a psychedelic experience. There's no portal to another dimension. They're just affecting the brain in a specific way. You know, it's like, how come people on like acid, they'll see like fractals? All people on acid will see fractals, right? And it's like, that's because maybe it's just affecting your visual cortex in a specific way. You know, it's not like there's a fractal dimension.
Right. It's just that's what the drug is doing.
Yeah.
Not the.
And then you're attaching meaning to it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, there's a fractal dimension. It's like,
right.
no, that's not true. But that's what they believed back then in those ancient cultures.
Right.
And that's why they would say things like, oh, once we take the soma, like in the Indian culture, it's like soma was basically like mushrooms. And like it would, so basically what they believe is soma is like you would eat mushrooms, like this like very potent mushroom, and then you'd pee it out. And then once you pee it out, you would drink that piss, and that would get you high. Even more high.
Oh, okay.
Because like it filters through the body system.
Right.
Right. So allegedly they would like drink this and like, and it would make them see like visions, and then those visions would help guide them. But it's like, no, it's just allowing you a different perspective on life that you normally wouldn't have gotten.
Right.
Like there's no like entity telling you something. You're making the meaning out of an enhanced perspective.
Okay.
So this is science.
Yeah.
Right? This is modern. But then like you get again those like subcults from the past, like that still believe in ancient stuff.
Right.
And that's why I said when we went to that cafe, I'm like, oh, it's like Legend of Korra. Like we're watching these people believe in a thing that's not real. Because if you go back to Aang's time, it was a normal thing. Like it's like, no, we're just benders, whatever. But then like in Korra, they saw them as like deities.
Yeah.
But it's like, why would you see them as deities? Like, if you go back to the normalness, you'll see like the reality of the situation.
Right.
They're just people.
Yeah.
Who can bend.
Right.
You know.
Hmm.
Or was that Aang's time? Was that Aang's time? Remember, like, I think it was Korra. You know what I'm saying, right? Remember,
yeah,
like,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, yeah, it's like the.
So that's the one thing I disagree with him on. When he's like,
Right.
oh, if we take DMT, we go into this like ancient dimension. I'm like, that's not really true because like, so a good example is even in his own book, Supernatural, he talks about like, he showed a picture during his presentation of like these like tribesmen creating fractal images in the ground. Because they're like, oh, we see this thing, so we're going to draw out these fractals.
Okay.
And then if you give a spider LSD or acid, they're the same thing. The spider will start weaving webs of fractals.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, that just tells me that it's just affecting like beings in a specific way.
Right.
That's what this thing does. It's almost like if you gave me serotonin, you serotonin will feel happier.
Okay. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
it's just the chemical affecting you. Like we're all chemical based beings. We just forget it.
Right.
You know? Even spiders are chemical because it's like, oh, is the spider going into like a godly dimension and he's seeing fractals, he's trying to tell the other spiders like, no, this is what's really going on in the world? Highly unlikely. They don't even have a cerebral cortex, a prefrontal cortex to like logically figure that out.
Right.
It's just acting, but because we have the prefrontal cortex because we're humans, which is our logical processing center, we've created the story. That's where stories come from.
Right.
The frontal logical,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
Right? Like, yeah, we're like the species that believed it was special because the mind told it that it was special.
Right.
We forget that we're a part of this giant system.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then when they say like, so like I heard this one story, this guy was like messaging me and he's like, it's weird how like you can hear somebody say like, oh, I've meditated for like 30 years. No, meditating for 30 years is like getting one trip of mushrooms. And I told the guy like, no, that's just, you're just receiving the same perspective of oneness. So you could either meditate for 30 years or you can do the mushrooms. They're going to give you the same perspective.
Right.
But it's still like, how are you attaching to that perspective? Because some people who go on like the mushrooms, they're going to go crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like we have to watch the meanings we tell ourselves.
Very true. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Or be mindful of what that is.
Just be mindful that you're being mindful at all.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's this weird like spiraling paradox where it's like the mind tricks itself into thinking that what it saw was real.
Yeah.
But it forgets that the mind created the thing that it saw in the first place.
Right.
Like, a good example. If I point a gun at you, right? If you've been shot before and I point a gun at you, you'll be like, oh crap, it's going to hurt me. But if I pull out this gun, if you've never seen a gun before, you'd be like, what is that?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's like, so is the gun really triggering fear or is it you? You're triggering the fear yourself.
Right.
You know? It's like the drug. It's like the drug's just doing something. You're attaching meaning to it. So again, that's the only thing I disagree with for Graham Hancock.
Yeah. But he wasn't like outside of all that. Like I think that what he was.
No, he's talking about like the Atlanteans.
Right.
What I really liked was like how he ended it with like, we found the Atlantean race. Like they probably came from Turtle Island, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, this culture that you've been talking about, this lost civilization,
right.
They were the Atlanteans. Because Plato, so the big coincidence is Plato is the first person to talk about the Atlanteans. So then they're like, where did Plato hear about the Atlanteans? He heard about it from his relative Solon, right?
Right.
And then how did Solon hear about it? Solon went to Greece, and then they talked about the Atlanteans in their texts.
Right.
And then it's like, but the Atlanteans were around 9,000 years before Greece. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
So what's a mind blow is people are like, oh no, they just made that up. But if you actually look at when the Ice Age started,
it fits the time.
It fits when he said that Atlantis fell.
Right. Yeah. Right. It matches the timeline.
Yeah.
For that. Right.
So it's like, did they make it up, or did global warming through a comet actually wipe out the Atlanteans?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it did. Yeah. I mean, I think these are evidences to show that it did. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, what this really taught me, like, what I really find like fascinating about all this is like you can know so much about like where we came from and like all this, but like nobody cares. Like, it's such a niche thing. It's like, we've cracked the code on civilization. That's cool, bro, but I gotta pay for my bills, or like I gotta feed my kids, or like,
yeah, of course,
I gotta go on this vacation. But the funny part is that's exactly what he said happened to the Atlanteans. They were so oblivious to this that like they just fell. But there's no way to solve it. Like, what are you honestly gonna do? Like, what can you do? Introduce it in educational systems. Okay, that's cool, but like still a lot of people are not going to care that much because they're going to be thinking about their next meal or whatever, right?
You're right.
So, like, what I believe the biggest takeaway from all this is like, just enjoy your experience, because whether or not this is real or whether or not it's going to happen in the future, like, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? It's like what really matters is your day-to-day experience. Right. Like, if it ends, if it ends, it ends. Everyone's life ends eventually. You know. So like finding out this great mystery, it's like, it's more like I just scratched an itch that was very like predominant in my mind, but I believe I've solved it. Like, in my mind, my mind's like, oh, I get it. I get why we're all here.
Right.
And I get we've been here before. You know.
Yeah, and it'll probably didn't happen again.
Yeah, and it'll happen again. But like, why are we here? It's because history brought us here. Like, there was a civilization before, it got wiped out, we reset. That makes sense to me. But like, why are we here from a spiritual point of view? It's whatever your mind creates.
Right.
Because life is just a story you tell yourself.
Yeah.
So it's like, whether or not we've been here before, doesn't matter. It's really down to the story you choose to believe in your own personal experience. You know.
Right.
And that's why I think like politics and like all this stuff is like, it's just herding cats. Like, why do we vote people in? Because why do we have like a manager or like a CEO? Because we don't want to think about all the heavy details. We just want to do our one task and let the chips fall where they may. And then when they don't fall in our favor, we complain really loud.
Yeah, but that's...
You know what I'm saying? It's kind of weird though. It's like, you don't want to take an active role in your own life, so why are you complaining when it doesn't fall in your favor? Do you know what I'm saying?
Sort of, but we're also...
It's sort of like... What I'm saying is like, we're such a confusedly apathetic species. Like, a lot of us. Not everyone. But it's sort of like, oh, why do they get something that I don't get? Like, why do they have it easier than me?
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe you should work a little harder. Maybe you should take advantage of opportunities.
Right.
You know, but like, we don't really want to do these things. We just want to be fed them. He calls us like a spoiled race. Because everything's so easy now. We can go to the supermarket.
Well, in this, yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, that's what the whole of society is. Most of society, not everyone, but like, it's like a spoiled brat who just wants their way. It's like, why can't I have this thing?
Okay.
Like, all right, so a good example. It's like when people argue about like climate change, for example.
Sure.
And it's like, nobody did the research to look into what's the real issue here. We're just yelling for no reason.
Right, okay.
So that's what I mean, spoiled kids. It's like, no, I want it my way. No, I want it my way. No, I want it my way. All right, why don't you just look at the facts and then you figure out how you're going to proceed.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's too much work to look into the facts. Oh, it's too much work to change my life. Spoiled kids. We just want things without doing any of the work. That's the whole of society. That's why we elect people to govern us. Because we don't want to think about it. We just want to think about our day to day. You know? I mean, I'm not saying like I'm above this though.
No, yeah.
I'm like, no, I want to focus on my own things. Like, you guys run the country, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah, we're just talking in general. This is what humans do, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
But
that's
that's
why I'm
what
saying we're spoiled, lazy species.
No, but that's sure, yeah, but that's that's what the environment has made us.
That's it. That exactly.
Or I would say
exactly,
that's what nature has made us.
That is, yeah, all right, true.
Because that happens in.
True.
I'm just saying it happens in the animal kingdom too.
For
There's
sure,
always going to be a leader.
We've just gotten too large, right?
Of course, yeah, but this is what. Yeah, large, yeah, but this is what would have happened. What will be happening, anyways? Like it's gonna.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Right, built up so with like, these sort of.
Let's say you have a pack of hyenas, 10 hyenas, and then there's 10 hyenas, and then there's only like 12 buffalo.
Yeah.
Okay. They're gonna work hard to get those buffalo because they're like, oh, there's only 10 of us, bro.
Yeah.
But if there's 1,000 hyenas, and like 1,000 buffalo, or like.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like you can just get lazy. Or 1,000, like 500 buffalo, 1,000 hyenas. It's like, okay, well, I don't have to do any work. They're gonna bring the food back anyways.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm saying we've gotten too large.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what nature has made us. I'm just saying.
No, for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
It's like I'd say like that's just.
I mean, yeah, that's yeah. That
I wouldn't say it's like nature really made it, but it's more like that's just how things.
No, but that's what I mean. No, I'm just saying that we were gonna go into this. This is how we were supposed to evolve into. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. I see what you're saying.
We were gonna build it up this way, anyways. Like it's just.
Well, I get what you're saying.
And then
what you're saying is it's like it's just fate. It's just probability. It's not like it was destined to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
But once you realize the play of the determinism.
But then only some people would realize that, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like spoiled kids. It's like you don't want to do the work to realize it's just determined.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like because if you realize it was determined, you would just enjoy your experience. Because like no, we have a finite amount of time here. How are you going to go through your experience? Mm-hmm. You're just watching a movie. Literally, you're just watching a movie. The start and the end have already been recorded. You're just watching the movie play out.
Yep.
Right? Because it's like probability, determinism. Like all ancient texts will say like they'll reference it differently, but it's like the modern interpretation is that like we're watching a movie and we are the actor in the film, and then our awareness is sitting in the movie seat.
Right.
You know, like have you heard that before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like what my thing is if we're watching a movie, that means everything's predetermined. There is an end. But we get caught up, the actor or the person in the seat is watching and they're believing that they're the actor on screen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's like just enjoy the fact. So, but when I say like enjoy it, it's like, so then should you never be angry? No, like when you're angry, be angry. When you're sad, be sad.
Right.
That's what true enjoyment is. It's fully immersing yourself in your experience. Yeah. If you're afraid, you're afraid. Mm-hmm. This is just fear. Okay.
Right.
You know. But again, a niche thing. It's like
it's niche thing. Yeah.
It's so niche. It's like nobody cares. Like how like. All right, let's say, how many people, if you're listening to this right now, you're one of the niche people, okay? Let's say 100,000 people start listening to this. You're 100,000 niche people. How many people are on this earth? 7 billion.
Yeah.
So if you take those numbers, it's like, this is a very tiny drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
So it's like, nobody cares. You could have cracked the code all you want, but...
Yeah, true. But this is also the problem with the 1%. We're part of the 1%.
Who has the opportunity to crack the code? Yeah.
Like,
for sure. Yeah. But that's why I'm saying
the
it's
rest
just
of the world
like
got other problems to deal with.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but again, spoiled children. We have the opportunity to think.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Socrates, hence Socratic gamers.
Yeah.
You know, you're because you were saying like that these philosophers were rich. They had like means.
Nothing else to do in their life.
Yeah, even though they would pass themselves off as being poor. Because it was a part of their experience.
Yeah.
But they had money. They came from money.
Yeah. That's the thing.
What do you think of I think this is so funny. Like on a personal perspective, you and I have always kind of been this way. Like we were in line and we were like watching these people like talk to Graham Hancock and be like, oh my God, you changed my life. Oh my God, I went to this thing. And like granted, he inspired me to travel, right? Like remember when I was going on that like 5-month backpacking trip, I was like, oh, Graham, I would listen to Graham Hancock and play Uncharted, you know?
Right.
So like my two biggest influences for that were Graham Hancock and Neil Druckmann, you know, the creator of Uncharted. Well, but it's like, it's like, sure. Why do you need to hear that? Mm-hmm. Like that's like, I'm in a line full of like 300 other people, and you're gonna listen to all 300 of us tell us your backstory, and you think that guy's gonna remember every single one? You can even see his exhaustion. Eh? Did you notice? I was like watching.
Well,
him,
yeah,
like,
after 2 hours of standing and talking, of course.
And then like
already tired. And then
like. Yeah, it was
and
so
then
weird.
Writing on each book.
And then every person just like, oh my God, I read this thing. Oh my God, oh, I decoded this thing. Well, like, it's like, yeah, okay, we may have like expanded upon his study, but I'm not going to tell you that. Like, you're like 69 years old, bro. Like, what, you going to change your life now because of my thoughts?
I think it's, it's more, I mean, it's just more for the fans.
Yeah,
than
stands,
for,
bro. That's what it is. It's just like, it's like they're more appreciative of the person than the actual work. You know what I mean? It's like I'm coming to you as a knowledge resource. I'm not coming to you as like, I like your life. Like, you're very inspirational. No. Like, but I find a lot of people inspirational, like Joe Rogan, Kevin Hart.
Right.
They're inspirational. But I'm not like, I don't want to hang out with you. Just like I'm sure you don't want to hang out with me. Like, you're inspirational because we don't want to hang out with one another.
Right.
You know, it's like you're just living your life, bro, and that's like inspiring.
Right.
But it's what a fan is somebody who's like, I want to be a part of your life. It's like, no, bro. Like, the reason why I'm on this side of the fence and you're on that side of the fence is because we live different lives. Like, you wouldn't be a fan of mine if we were friends.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then so like anyways, so we went to a Warped Tour before, and like we talked to the bands, and they were like everyone's like fangirling, you know, like, oh my God, and they were just like, what's it like being in a band, man? That must be crazy. And then like with our experience of Graham Hancock, it's like it's like, you're awesome, man. He was like thank you, and we had nothing for him to sign, you know.
Right.
And then my only question was, where did you buy that book? Because I want to read it.
Where do you buy that? Like one of his other books, right? Yeah.
No. He read a book and he references that book.
I see.
And I was like, where did you buy that book? Because I couldn't find it online.
Oh, okay.
I had Googled Amazon, and he's like, just buy it on Amazon. I'm like, what? So I went home, and then I was like, it's on Amazon now. What the hell? I swear I couldn't find this when I first Googled it.
Maybe they just ran out of stock or something.
Maybe, I guess. But see, it's like, that's the difference between a stan and like, I like you for a thing. Like you're helping me evolve my character.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing is like that beta thing where like everybody who's like, they'd talk to him and they'd like they'd like kneel at his feet, and we're like, I was like, what? This is so beta right now, bro. Right. Then when we came up, we just like stood and we shook his hand, and then he had to stand up to meet us because I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna kneel. Like, what is this?
Right.
Some Osho stuff right now, yeah. Graham, you're awesome though. I'm not saying it's not a knock on you. I'm just saying like the stance.
It's just the idea that kind of idea is just weird to me. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's kind of weird. Like why would I kneel?
Right.
It's like some stan.
Jeez.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's such a knock, but I don't know. That just like peeves me off. I'm like, have some self-respect, bro.
Whatever, man. Each to their own.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like it's your life experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Final thoughts.
This is just how we think. Final thoughts. I mean, just look at that horizon.
Oh, in the game.
I mean, yeah, and that's what he was doing with his pictures, right?
Yeah, he was going to these like, but how do you know those happen every 12 years? So I was like, damn, if you visited those 3 spots, that's 36 years of your life.
Every 12 years?
Yeah,
in perfect alignment, or every year?
Yeah. No, I think it's 12 years.
Okay.
I don't think because it was like the spring equinox. It's like it's a very specific
That means
time.
it's every year.
Oh, really?
Spring equinox. The day of spring.
I don't remember. I
At
think
the Stonehenge, it happens every year.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
They go to that every year.
See, that was the statistical part I ignored because I was like, yeah, this is just not serving me right now.
Right. Yeah.
Let me just so they're all aligned.
I mean, there's a lot of pyramids that do that. Like when I went to the Mayans one, that's also calculated for when spring starts, so they can start the harvest. That's what all these are.
Yeah.
Calendars.
Exactly. Calendars and time. So it's like
timekeepers.
So if you look into like the Seven Sages theory in his first book, Fingerprints of the Gods, what they talk about is like these hence eighth sage. That's where the name came from. But the seven sages went around the world teaching their knowledge. But these seven sages were Atlanteans.
Right.
Right. And they were teaching these places like how to farm and like how to calculate, you know.
Like the 300 that came down from the space and
300?
The show.
100.
Oh, it's 100, sorry.
Yeah. When they came down from the space and they taught them their ways.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like the writers of science fiction must have read like a lot of science fiction or like alternate theories. Like they must have read Graham Hancock's work because it's like that coincides really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's quite logical too, though. But yeah.
True. It's funny because we like fear a post-apocalyptic world. You know, like in human nature,
right.
Like we make a lot of movies about the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Right. But how did the dinosaurs feel? This is the dinosaurs' post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like the Atlanteans.
I mean, they didn't know any better. World. They didn't know any better at the time.
All right, fine. The Atlanteans. So we're all like, oh my God, this world is so sick. But the Atlanteans are like, bro, my world got destroyed. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's perspective. Right. It's like, so like if you look at the 100, it's like, okay, the people who are floating in space, their world got destroyed. But then the tribes that are on Earth in the 100, their world is amazing because they're like, oh, look at this. We get to hunt on land. We get like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, what way do you want to look at it?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it could be an apocalypse or it can be a paradise.
True.
But that's what Jesus said. He said, the kingdom of heaven is right in front of you. Right. You just need to know how to look.
Right.
See that? That's what happens when you read too many like spiritual texts. You can like draw upon it, and people start thinking like, "Oh my God, you're like ultra spiritual because you can recite something." Right. You know what the code is for that? What? Read the goddamn book. That's all.
Okay.
All right. So.
Or watch a doc.
Yeah. So till next week. I love these spiritual ones because I rant so hard.
Next
on
week?
them.
Whenever the next one is.
Oh, whenever the next one is. Yeah, because we don't have a timeline anymore. We typically do once a week, so. Yeah, stay tuned for the next one. I love these spiritual rants because, like, they always, like, fire me up.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
And I'm like, look at this, it's so wrong. But that's my...
Then I'm the other side. It's like, yeah, whatever, man.
And then the niche is that we record it and it just goes out into the ether.
Right.
People listen, people don't listen, whatever.
Yeah.
You know. We should, I think, a couple of topics we want to talk about for Socratic Dialogue we can stay tuned for. Our Vice the movie.
Yeah,
that's a movie review, I guess.
That's a movie review, I guess. We'll see. Yeah.
You'll have to like field that one because I haven't watched that in a while. And social media, we got to talk about that one. It's gonna be a good one. And Does Money Buy Happiness? So look out for those.
Oh, great.
Talk about those.
Great topics.
Yeah. All right. Till next time. Same bad time. Same bad channel.
Okay. Peace.